Of course, today we are going to be looking at what's happening with these protests across college campuses, focusing in on some of where we saw the worst protests yesterday. What will they be doing next? We already now know that Columbia University, which remember announced at least 2 days of virtual school, has now gone to finish the year with virtual school. So it's not just the week of Passover or the first 2 days of Passover. There will be no on-campus classes at Columbia University in New York for the rest of the school year, which is about 3 more weeks when you include final exams. So that's how it got so out of control. They don't believe they could get it under control and provide a safe environment for their students to both learn and study before they take their final exams. You wonder, will the students graduating even be able to experience an actual graduation ceremony? I mean, Logan, in a sense, it's kind of like that scary flashback, dystopian flashback to the COVID years.
Yeah, the summers of 2020.
Where you did everything by screen and you no longer could interact with people. And you have to wonder if maybe some of this violence that we're seeing is even connected to the fact that people forgot how to even protest events without attacking each other because they had different views.
President Trump actually talked about this specifically yesterday, I guess as he was leaving probably the court, because the fact there was obviously some pro-Trump protesters, there were some supporters, but how that balance is certainly not equal in the way that's being treated. So take a listen.
What's going on is a disgrace. Now, it's interesting outside for great Americans, people that want to come down and they want to protest at the court and they want to protest peacefully. We have more police presence here than anyone's ever seen. For blocks, you can't get near this courthouse. And yet you have nobody up at a college where you have very radical people wanting to rip the colleges down, the universities down. And that's a shame. But it all starts with Joe Biden.
I mean, we were seeing massive arrests yesterday, over 150 at NYU. And we know that because their system broke down after they'd arrested 134. But they still had more arrests there.
A lot more to process.
Columbia, over 100. I mean, again, when you get to these kind of numbers, Logan, you realize you don't know how many of them are actually students, how many of these are agitators. We saw it at Harvard Square, too, had been shut down for protests. You're seeing the buses filled with these arrests. But what we are seeing is a non-stop movement. It may come to a quieter time when these campuses, again, they take about a month off during their winter break. They're definitely not going to be calling it Christmas break at these schools. But what happens when they come back? And by the way, in these major cities, these protesters, I don't even know if they go to these schools.
Right. It's not the same as going to a big campus, what you think of maybe in the Southeast or something like that, or
anywhere,
or Notre Dame, or anywhere. Yeah, exactly. Where there's just a big college campus. It's not really set up that way. These are city campuses that can be overtaken easily
block the streets
by protesters, like you said, who may have no affiliation to the school, and that just is what's happening nationwide.
We wanted to bring Rick Grinnell into this conversation. Rick, of course, as an ambassador, has worked at the UN, so he's been in New York as well, and with a national security background as well. Rick, we are seeing really unprecedented levels of violent protest in the street on behalf of the Palestinian cause. Specifically, this all started around October 7th. There was some sympathy for Israel. Quickly, that sympathy was gone. And now we've seen over 6 months, and now that Iran has gotten involved and Israel's gotten involved for the first time ever, actually shooting back and forth at each other from their own territories, that these protests have led to now Columbia University going virtual for the rest of this semester. They said they can't get the campus under control for their final 2 weeks of class and their final exams. I think there were close to 400 or 500 arrests yesterday just at New York City universities and colleges. And that's just what the police were able to report. These colleges and universities, Rick, have not been able to keep their own students safe, especially their Jewish students safe, but anyone that has a different view safe. And now it's like they're kind of giving up and saying, just go home. We can't keep you safe here. And this is in the United States of America.
Yeah, look, I think you just hit it on the head with that phrase, keeping them safe, because that's really the crux of what's happening. We live in America where you get to protest, you get to dissent, from government action. You get to say whatever you want, except, I guess, if you're Donald Trump. But the reality is that that's what we celebrate in America, is dissenting views and protests. And I'm all for having this conversation in a rational way. What I think that the far left has done, though, is they've hijacked this process. And now they're canceling the other side. They're intimidating the other side. They're putting violence against the other side. People don't feel safe. And that means that my voice then doesn't get to be heard because you are intimidating and seeking violence against me and silencing me. That, to me, is where the university presidents should come down. They should say to these protesters, this is your area. You have to stay in this area to protest. I find nothing wrong with telling people in a public square, you have to stay in this corralled area. Speak up, have any sign you want, don't be violent. But when people walk down the campus, they have a right to avoid you. They have a right, if they feel unsafe, to go around you. And right now, this crowd, this mob is following people, intimidating them, and even starting with violence. This is unacceptable, and the presidents of the universities need to start acting.
Yeah, there's other ways law enforcement can be utilized here. I mean, again, you want to be careful. It's there's a mix of students here, of agitators here. These are also, a lot of these are in city campuses, which are even more difficult to track. Who are the actual students? Who are the actual just bad guy protesters utilizing this? But like as you said, Rick, they're not like in some college square area that you can avoid. I mean, they are, when you look at the photos, they are blocking buildings. You can't get into class. They are tracking down students who they think are Jewish or heading to, or maybe have a yarmulke on, and they are harassing them and even getting violent. And the arrest, it just seems to me, this is an interesting part about this moment. And we saw it on in the Golden Gate Bridge. I mean, this movement in the United States is growing, Rick, and I think it's waking a lot of Americans up to the fact that there's a significant group, not a majority, but a significant group of people in the United States of America who take a view which is very anti-American, but as like Rashida Tlaib said, we will use the U.S. Constitution and all the rights guaranteed to us to take their policies down.
Well, one of the things that we have to be very proud of is that we have a U.S. Constitution where you get to speak your mind. And so if she's trying to manipulate the process, it doesn't matter. She's participating in the greatest system in the history of the world. But I do think that we have to play smarter, and we should be able, in a college campus, for instance, it's a private university, they should be able to shut it down and only allow students on campus or staff members. If you're a professional agitator, which it's clear there are many in these situations, if you're a professional, goer to violence and events, and it doesn't really matter what it is, you just want chaos, and so you cover your face and you create chaos. I don't think that you have a right to be on the university campuses. The university presidents should shut that down. Take IDs, and if you are a student and you want to protest, then you have every right to do that as long as you're not violent.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that. I remember in my college days, we couldn't get into any buildings without having all of your right IDs. I mean, I went to a university in a city as well, GW. So we had protests. There was 1 week we had to shut down. It was when the World Bank meeting was happening, or the IMF meeting, and the school decided they didn't think they could keep the students safe. There'd be too many protests. And so they sent us home for a week, and they closed classes. But they did that preemptively for 5 days. It wasn't like these events, which they could predict, but it's like they let them get out of control while their students and faculty were there, putting them more at risk. They didn't do anything preemptive. They didn't say, you know what, this is a week that's going to be ridiculous here. We're already seeing the protests. We don't have enough security.
We know it's Passover.
Let's send
it's a holiday for a lot of kids.
Send them home for a week, and so that these protesters, have no one actually even follows their protest because there won't be anybody here to protest at.
Yeah, I don't think they were thinking three-dimensionally, if you will. They weren't really looking at the calendar going, okay, this could be a problem. Maybe we need to think about how our student body, but not only our student body, how other people, as Rick said, all of the people in masks will treat this situation, because that is the problem. You can see those telltale signs. Now, I do think there's some, the sort of glimmer of hope, the silver lining is when you have a situation like what happened at Google and at YouTube, where they had, dozens of their employees protest, and those employees were fired, as they probably should have been, as they were doing a sit-in at their CEO's office. If you have more actual action happening, and where you have big companies saying, look, we don't even care if you're out there protesting, but as soon as you bring it on our property, now we got a problem. That could start solving this, giving a solution really to these over-the-top protests that are happening that are filled with threats.
I believe it was France who put this forward, and I think it's a really good idea, is that if you're going to be protesting, you can't cover your face. I don't believe that you have the right to be anonymous, because then if you commit some sort of crime, we don't know who you are. And so if you're going to go into a mob, if you're going to protest, I am totally comfortable with saying that you've got to be identified so that we know you're not hiding something that's going to create violence.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is what the police, they encounter, and it's a mess. It's because you could say in the United States, we've had this long discussion throughout our history that you can have anonymous speech. Is this anonymous speech, or is this anonymous chaos? I mean, this is, again, is it even a protest at this point? I mean, and that's when you have to start getting into the legal ideas. The fact that when mass amounts of people start being arrested, that's not that's not just civil disobedience, Logan. That is, you came to do violence, you came to injure, you came to hurt. Yes, you wanted to bring attention to your issue, but not in a positive way. The interesting thing is, though, Rick, and again, I think it tells us a lot about where our country is and why this election coming up is so important. Because it's like our country, listen, it can go one way or the other. Because I don't think this is not just a bunch of 18 and 19-year-olds on these college campuses doing this, but they're certainly going to be influenced by it. And so depending on who our leaders are is going to influence, is this the direction of our country? Is it going to be a pro-Hamas movement inside our college campuses, not just liberal, but pro-Hamas? Or is it going to be a country that understands there will be dissent, understands protest, and can respect that without turning to violence?
Yeah, look, that's the issue for me, is the violence. I love free speech and I want people to be able to have it. But when you are creating violence, when you're creating an unsafe environment for others to have their free speech, and clearly there are Jewish students who are feeling intimidated, who are intimidated, and they're losing their right, that's unacceptable. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to take someone else's safety away from them.
Rick, as always, we appreciate your analysis and being part of our team at the American Center for Law and Justice.